Welcome back to the United Pubcast for a bit of a Premier League wrap-up, something a little bit different. Obviously, I didn't discuss the match post-match against Everton. George was with me at the pub. Larry and Vid did a fine job in reviewing the match, but that middle space for a Man United fan at the moment, in between games, obviously a big 3 points, but a big clash later in the week, so which we'll obviously preview. So we thought, there's not much news out there. We don't want to do the usual Harry Kane transfer stuff, and there's no real news around Qatar. So we thought we'd have a look around the grounds and sort of what I think, as you can see by the image on the thumbnail, a pivotal round, not just for Manchester United, but everyone in the Premier League. I think the relegation battle, the title race, I think now is around, you got 10, 11 games left in the season. I think that, in my opinion, that's when the title race starts. And obviously the top four race as well. I think there's always about 6 or 7 games around that impacts the top four race. So I think it will be interesting to have a look around the ground and something a little bit different. So George is filling in for Larry today. George was at the pub with us on Saturday night. Before we start, George, in regards to going around the grounds, Saturday night, watching Man United, it was a good night.
Oh, it's a great night, especially for me personally, because it's the first time I've been to Scruffy Murphys at night and seen United win. So it was a very memorable occasion for myself. But God, Everton is shit, aren't they? That was my first reaction.
What was it? Because United, I think in the first half was, I wouldn't say our best performance of the season, but United were very good. Is it just one of those cases, a little bit of both? Everton were bad, United were good, or was one or the other sort of contributing more?
I wouldn't say it was our best performance of the season, but my God, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Everton's worst. Like, De Gea, as much as we criticise him, yes, it was a good long ball in behind Ben Godfrey, but what's Ben Godfrey doing 30 yards from United's goal?
It was very sort of un-Sean Dyche-like performance by Everton, I thought. It was very much like if you put like a Lampard, which we'll get into in a little bit, put Lampard in charge in terms of how chaotic their defending was, and we'll discuss that in regards to Chelsea. But I'll say good day to everyone in the live chat. We do appreciate everyone joining us. And if you do have any talking points remaining of the fixtures this weekend, do throw them in the comments, and please do leave a like on the video. Very much appreciated. And if you are new, hit that subscribe button. Very much appreciated. We'll get into this, Mark. Good to see you. But with a linesman who chinned Andy Robertson for getting the freedom of Sydney, I want to discuss that because, God, it seems every single week there's an incident regarding a referee and a player. Yeah, Bruno Fernandes, then Mitrovic. Now you got Andy Robertson. Well, this one might actually be the linesman towards the player, which is a unique situation. But Rob from It's a Football Thing, good to see you. The reason we're a little bit early today, I cannot miss It's a Football Thing tonight in about an hour and a half's time. I'm getting my popcorn ready for their in-depth Chelsea chat. So if you aren't subscribed to It's a Football Thing, go on our socials. You can find them there. I'm live in a little bit, discussing all things Premier League again. Adam, good to see you, mate. Hope all is well down in Tassie. SJ Bart, as always, appreciate you joining us. Shane, good to see you. Newcastle, big result for Newcastle. It was one of those, maybe a tricky one away at Brentford, but I think, did they go 1-0? No.
Yeah, they did go 1-0 down. They went 1-0 down. But also, congratulations to Nick Pope, the first man in the Premier League to save a penalty off Ivan Toney.
I did see that. No, well done. A big win for Newcastle. I thought as a United fan off the back of them sort of winning, or they had the win against West Ham, but you thought, okay, went away at Brentford, you think, okay, maybe drop points there. And if they go 1-0 down, you think, okay, yeah, get a little bit excited. But Newcastle turned it around and did really well. Maybe even touch on the Anthony Gordon substitution in regards to he chucked up a little bit of a hissy fit. I saw nothing in it, but you could imagine the reaction if there was a Bruno Fernandes or a Ronaldo. So I think maybe that is worth discussing when we get around Newcastle. A big win for them. Ashby, who was with us on Saturday night, good to see you as always. And Mike, hi, unfortunately at work, but we'll watch in full afterward. No dramas, mate. Do appreciate you joining in. But look, before all the Premier League stuff, let's go back to Man United because obviously Larry and Vin sort of did a good match review post-match, but we're still at the pub. Just your thoughts on the match. Okay, Everton were bad, United were good, but any sort of real talking points? Because obviously you were next to me in my sort of McTominay discussion with the man behind us 2 minutes before his goal, which I'll let everyone know sort of the whereabouts of that. That was a really interesting bit on Saturday night. But Anthony Martial returned with the goal. Harry Maguire, solid performance at the back. Now that doesn't sort of keep him in the team, but obviously Jadon Sancho played quite well. Anthony did well, but sort of missed a lot of chances. So just one or two talking points, things that sprung to mind against Everton.
I'll get the negative out of the way first. And as much as I still want to give Anthony time, and I still believe he can become the player that we want him to be, I thought he was actually quite wasteful. And I'm not going to call him poor because he wasn't, but I can't call him good either because the reason why he was given as much space as he was and got the chances that he did was because Ben Godfrey was terrible on that side. Unfortunately for me, for a player of that quality, should be only needing putting ball a metre either side of Jordan Pickford. He's not going to save it, but on both occasions that he had, or two times straight at Pickford, the third time he allowed, I think it was Anana that tracked back to make the challenge when he should have had no right to do it. Yeah, I agree with Rob. Should be scoring one of them.
If you get on target against Pickford, it's always a chance. In saying that, Pickford did have quite a good game by his standards, so fair play to him. But he did decide to pick the ball out of the back of the net twice. But yeah, my thoughts in regards to that, like, not in terms of full tactical analysis of the game, but my one story from the match. Obviously, everyone who tunes into the pubcast knows I defend Scott McTominay quite a lot. Standing in the pub having a few beers, and it was about, I forget what minute it was, about 3 or 4 minutes before McTominay's for the goal. And he made a mistake. Well, it wasn't a mistake. Kind of. It was McTominay's fault. Like, it was a bad ball into him on his weak foot. McTominay lost the ball, and Everton started countering it. Whatever. It was a nothing incident throughout the game. Technically, McTominay's fault. I think it was a bad pass by Aaron Wan-Bissaka from memory, but it was one of those things. Nothing incident. But this guy behind me absolutely lost his nut going off at Scott McTominay. And I was saying, first of all, just calm down. It's not that serious. Calm down, mate. But then he just wouldn't stop. Just for about 30 seconds to a minute, just abusing the hell out of him. I was saying, we're sitting here in the pub with a beer in our hand. It's a lot easier for us. On pitch level, against professional footballers, which Everton are, it's a little bit harder. So cut him some slack to sort of try and get behind him. And he's saying, nah, sell him. He's a waste of space. He's a piece of shit, this and that. And I'm thinking, calm down. And we got not heated, but it's because it had to be separated by people. It never got physical or anything. And I told him where to go. He told me where to go. It was one of those things. 2 minutes later, Scott McTominay 1-0. And if I felt like Eric Cantona with my chest puffed out during those celebrations, and look, it was a good thing. We hugged it out post at halftime and had a chat. And I think that was a good thing about the pub in terms of when you're watching it on Twitter. If you got into an argument with Twitter or with someone on Twitter and something like that happened, it would just the shit slinging contest would just continue. But at the pub, we sat down at halftime and sort of had a beer over it, and we actually agreed on many things in regards to the Scott McTominay issue. We just obviously tempers are flared during the heat of the moment. But yeah, I was very happy. My boy Scott McTominay helped me in my argument.
Yeah, well, I actually was saying to you at the time, if I was on the podcast with either yourself or Larry or Vin last night, I would have given him my 3 points. And the reason I say that is, the goal aside, I thought he was fantastic with Sabitzer as a defensive midfielder. Very rarely did Everton have the ability to play through us. The only time Everton looked threatening was when that one time that McTominay had to. Okay, yes, it was his fault, but he copped a shit pass from Wan-Bissaka, and there was another time that Sabitzer copped a shit pass from Malacia, and they're the only 2 times Everton looked threatening. Otherwise, yes, we could say Maguire had a solid game, but that's also because McTominay and Sabitzer laid such a strong foundation ahead of him.
This comment here, Mark Honourable mentioned Maguire too. I've been critical of him over the past year, but credit where it's due. Well, the criticism has been very warranted with Harry Maguire, but he came in and did well. Now, obviously, Rafael Varane, you would assume, was rested for the Sevilla tie. Is there any situation in regards to the fixture pile-up, which Eric Ten Hag has spoken about, in regards to Marcus Rashford's potential injury? Is there any situation? I don't agree with this or don't see a situation where this is sort of coming about. But after Harry Maguire's solid performance, anything changes with the back four for Sevilla in terms of the way they play?
If I had to throw a specky in there, potentially it's a Varane-Maguire partnership on Friday and Martinez is rested for the Premier League match. But otherwise, no.
I can't see that happening, but it's a shout. I just think there will be... We think Sevilla is this bogey team, this team that just wins every game in European football. But ultimately, if you do look at Eric Ten Hag's viewing of weighing up tough games, it is a tough game against Sevilla. But yeah, they're not the Sevilla of old. It's not Barcelona away. It's not Real Madrid. It's not Chelsea or Liverpool. Not Chelsea this season, but it's not Arsenal or City. Sevilla are kind of a mediocre team in Spain this season. So he could potentially see this. I wouldn't agree, and I don't think he will rotate too heavily, but he could.
I can see... Although there has to be a rotation, we can't be doing what Ole did for the back end of the COVID season and playing the same starting 11 6 weeks in a row. But where I can see the rotation, potentially, do we see Martial starting this time, especially with potentially on the left as well, because Rashford won't be there? Do we see Weghorst come in so that way Martial can start on the weekend through the middle? Stuff like that.
Rob here. Who's our first choice right back, Wan-Bissaka or Dalot?
I've been on this podcast many times, even when Dalot was going through his strong patch, saying that I would start Wan-Bissaka over Dalot because, yes, Dalot looks better on the ball, but he's not elite on the ball. At least Wan-Bissaka is elite defensively. And, okay, if you gave me the option of Kieran Trippier when we were linked with him, okay, I would have taken him in a heartbeat. Same thing with this summer. If we go and get Denzel Dumfries or Jeremy Frimpong from Bayern, okay, I'll take either of them. But while
What
we
do you
only
make
have
of the right back situation in regards to Wan-Bissaka, Delo? But look, obviously, a lot of the sort of headlines will centre around Harry Kane and Victor Osimhen. Obviously, there's a desperate need for a number 9. But the right back, since Erik ten Hag has come in, there was always an issue around right back, and that was when we thought, even sort of under Ralph Rangnick, we thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka's days were numbered. Erik ten Hag came in, wasn't using Aaron Wan-Bissaka, so we thought, okay, definitely Wan-Bissaka's going to move on. There's definitely going to have to be a right back who's going to have to be signed. Now we're in a situation where the right backs are fighting out and sort of getting the best out of each other, but the right back is still linked. So you're just thinking, well, if we are bringing a right back in, one has to go. And I'm just it does sound like Diogo Dalot is going to sign a new contract extension. Wan-Bissaka was very close to a move, didn't get it for whatever reason. I'm just thinking, how do you think the right back situation plays out in regards to, is one going to leave? Are both going to stay? Is one going to leave and we're going to sign one? Are we going to sign one and both stay? Just what your thoughts on what's likely going to happen?
For me, right back's not our biggest priority. Obviously, if Denzel Dumfries or Frimpong is available at a decent price, go and get him. But for me, it's not a priority. However, if one of those guys does come in, one of Dalot or Wan-Bissaka, whether they leave permanently or on loan, I think it does have to happen though.
Yeah, no, look, it'll be interesting. And look, it is a good thing, Rob, here saying I see both staying. I think there's putting money on it. I think Wan-Bissaka could lead just in regards to, I think 6 months ago he wanted to, and I think maybe maybe move back to London for him potentially. Obviously, Crystal Palace, which we'll get into in a little bit. Very good performance against Leeds. I just think that the path for Wan-Bissaka, guaranteeing football somewhere in the Premier League is there. Diogo Dalot, I'm not sure in regards to. It does sound like he's definitely keen on signing a new contract extension, but we'll have that discussion another day. We'll move into all things English Premier League. So if you're in the live chat, any Premier League talking points, linesman's. Elbow and Andy Robertson, was Frank Lampard losing, the drama at Anfield. Let us know any topics or any talking points.
Just on Lampard, do you think there's
We'll
a scenario
start with
where he could
Chelsea.
get sacked? Do you think there's a scenario he could get sacked if they lose 5 in a row?
I think that's what we said at the pub. I think I might have said to you or someone else, has there ever been a interim manager who's been sacked?
I can't think of one.
And I say that sort of lightheartedly, but also you have to be kind of serious. Like in regards to, we're all sitting, of course Lampard won't be sacked, but let's say they get humiliated by Real Madrid, which is a potential situation that could happen. That they get knocked out of the Champions League, so that chance of a trophy escapes them. Then if they do lose 4 or 5 more in the Premier, now what might save them is I think the team below them might be Crystal Palace, I'm not sure, or it might be Wolves, I forget, is a fair way. I think they're like 10 points, or they were 10 points behind them, so they can't really drop any further. But let's draw hypothetically a smash by Real Madrid out of the European Cup and they lose 5 games in a row in the Premier League. Do you think there is a real possibility where he could call it quits with Frank?
Oh, it'd be funny, wouldn't it?
I don't know what will happen.
It's one of the things. Like, what is it worth paying out an interim? If especially when it's that job.
Well, I don't know. Look, who knows? He's going to be on a lot of money, whatever. In terms of, he's not going to be on a proper sort of manager's wage sort of thing. So I think in terms of the money Todd Bowie's sort of splashing around West London, I think sacking Lampard's not sort of going to hurt his pockets too much compared to, I think they just released their financials as well. And they've lost over £1 billion now, obviously, in terms of unique circumstances in regards to their transfer money. And what we'll see what they recoup over the next couple of years. But they're in a bit of a mess. And look, thank God that is happening at Chelsea because they've been successful in the last 20 years, unfortunately. We don't like to admit it. And they are, no matter even when they are successful, they are a circus. But long may the negative one continue.
I hate to be cynical, but I could see this coming as soon as Abramovich ownership changed. I could see this coming from a mile away.
I think we all said it. Even when Todd Bowley, I know Chelsea fans, and they're saying, no, Todd Bowley, as extravagant as he is, they say, no, if there's enough money goes around, you're going to be successful. I was thinking, yeah, but not that much money. Like, yeah, okay, the teams who spend the most money, usually gravitate towards the top of the league. I fully understand that, and that is right. But they're spending too much money. I'm just saying, does that make sense?
I wouldn't say too much money is the reasoning. It's the lack of intelligence behind that spending. Like, how can you spend 500 million in your team's worse than what it was before? That's what's happened with Chelsea.
Yeah, but it's 500 million in one go. 500 million over 3 years. Yeah, a gradual. But ever just throwing a whole new team onto the training ground for a new manager was never going to work.
But if that 500 million was spent on correct players, like for example, replacing Kepa and Edouard Mendy as a goalkeeper, bringing in a proper number 9 that's not a Aubameyang, and so they don't have to play Kai Havertz as a false 9, getting in a holding midfielder as well, with someone else with Enzo Fernandez, or someone that can allow Enzo Fernandez to push further forward, plays where the squad actually needed to be addressed. Maybe if they did it all in one go, it would have helped. But ultimately, they didn't do it that way.
what I need from the Chelsea discussion is moved away from Lampard. I can laugh at him losing a few more games. That is what it is. But I need everyone on Twitter sort of get on the bandwagon of comparing Woodrick and Anthony, because Anthony is still unfortunately labelled the flop of the English Premier League this season, which I don't agree with. Look at Richarlison, for God's sake, how much money he went to Spurs. I don't think he scored a Premier League goal for Spurs.
No,
but you look at what Mudryk, I think, was around £100 million. And he's been, I don't want to say a disaster for Chelsea, but a disaster for Chelsea. And what he develops into, time will tell. But Anthony, in terms of, he needs to sort of escape this sort of stupid label of being flop, because it simply isn't when you do look around the Premier League. But Tom here saying, I mean, if they sack Lampard, it'll be Bruno Salter again. What if Chelsea does even worse? Well, yeah, look, they won't sack him. What then? There's hardly any games left of the season for it. That's what will save Lampard. And who knows, he might go on. It would be a very Chelsea thing for Frank Lampard to go and win the Champions League, which would obviously be a disaster. But look, yeah, they won't sack him. But if they keep losing games, it's only going to dig their hole a little bit deeper. George as well in the chat. G'day, lads. Good to meet up again on the weekend. It was good to see George at the pub. Nearly got my 3-0 prediction. Should have been 3 or 4-0. You should have got your prediction there. Rob here in regards to, there's a few other comments which we'll get into as we crack on. So if you do put your chat in there, we will get back to it as we go. But Emery from Aston Villa, they're sort of plodding along nicely.
Yeah, they're up to 6th place now. From memory, they've only lost 2 or 3 games since he's taken charge in the league. Like, that's remarkable considering Villa were like 16th, 17th when he took over.
Look, he's a great manager. Is he a manager to sort of take that team to the next level, like in regards to winning a Premier League title or a Champions League title? Maybe not. But in that bracket below, or that job category below, he's almost that perfect man now. Yes, in regards to style of football, might not be exactly the most pleasing on the eye, but I don't know if I thought it was a fantastic appointment or a shocking appointment, but at the moment it's proven to be a fantastic appointment.
Look, I've always been on the opinion with Emery that if he was backed at Arsenal the way that Arteta was, he'd have this success that Arsenal are having now a lot quicker.
I think 90% of managers, if given time and full back in, would sort of, we're just all the clubs are far too reactionary. And I think any manager, any player given the time and the right sort of surroundings would succeed. But as Eric Ten Hag says, managers don't have time.
Yes, managers don't have time, but I don't know what. Okay, let's not talk too much about Arsenal, because ultimately then what they're doing or have done has ultimately led to a scenario where they're about or likely going to win the league now. But Arteta's first 2 seasons is worse than what Emery's ever was at at Arsenal. And for someone that got them to an FA Cup final, a Europa League final that they didn't deserve to be in, and just bordering on Champions League, probably as close as they ever got to being in it since this year. I just thought he was harshly treated.
Yeah, I think a lot of managers are harshly treated in regards to job security, but look, that's another discussion. And look, I'm sure another manager will lose their job in the coming weeks when you do see these results. We'll go back a couple of while ago in the chat, Newcastle fan and mate of ours, Shane, thoughts on Isaac. I think he has the potential to be a world-class player. He's got a very good goal. And just your thoughts on him, because definitely not in the flop category sort of thing, but when he did come in, it was a big money signing. He was Newcastle's sort of marquee arrival, but then didn't really hit the ground running through injury from memory. So it was a bit of a slow burner. But since he has come into the team, he's looked the goods. I'm just thinking in regards to Newcastle moving forward, is he their number 9? Is he their main man? Or do they go and get another? Let's say they do make Champions League football. Is he the number 9 next season for them, or could you see them going and spending big money on someone else?
I think they'll all spend big money on someone else anyway, but Isaac, I do agree with Shane. He's a fantastic player. The first time I saw him was actually in the international game when Sweden were drawn in the same group as Greece, but he was the one guy that individually stood out heads and shoulders above the level of every other player on that pitch. And the couple of times that I have seen him at Dortmund in the Champions League, the way that him and Haaland linked up was actually not talked about as much as it should have been, in my opinion.
I think what Newcastle have done well now, okay, they did spend a lot of money on Isaac, of course, not sort of astronomical amount, but big money, especially for a club like Newcastle. What they have done, a little bit like Eric Ten Hag signing. Now, there might be a signing there which you could point to and say, no, he's been a shocking signing. But from memory, the signings they have made since the takeover, where there've been a lot of money or sort of just your run-of-the-mill sort of 10, 15, 20 million sign, they're all worked. They're all sort of been solid signings for Eddie Howe.
All bar Chris Wood. He is absolutely dog shit.
Chris Wood, wasn't he like the first one though? Like kind of he was just brought in Like it was a bit of an emergency thing. It was January. Oh, I could be wrong with that.
Yeah, I can't believe Burnley got 25 million for him. That is that.
That was off the back though. Remember, like, they were trying to take one of Burnley. The narrative was taking one of Burnley's strikers off them in the relegation battle.
Imagine Sean Dyche picking up the phone and hearing 25 million for Wood. Are you sure they didn't mean 5 million? Yeah. Imagine him picking up the phone and hearing that.
But they have done well in regards to their recruitment. Now it'll be interesting their recruitment in next season in terms of the Champions League football and how their squad and Eddie Howe adapts to the rigors of that. But it will be interesting. But they are plodding along nicely and sort of proving me wrong, but proving a lot of people wrong in regards to their consistency. Because you thought, like Arsenal or like Leicester or like those teams having a good season, you think sort of they'll fade away at some stage. But I said we're 30 games in, so ultimately they're not going to fade away at some stage like Arsenal. Well, we'll get into the title discussion in a little bit, but we've all been sitting here since November, December. Oh, they'll fade away. Well, no, they're still top. They're still there. But Shane here in regards to the Newcastle discussion, Wood wasn't first, but he was an emergency. It took him to get Burnley relegated. I remember that. Yeah, so
from memory, it was Trippier, Guimaraes, and Botman that came before him.
Rob here, Vega's back to Burnley next year in the Prem. Actually, I haven't thought of that in regards to what that does in regards to his situation, in regards to value in terms of, well, it doesn't really benefit Man United. Probably it's a negative if you did want to purchase him. You're now buying from a Premier League, not that I do, but you're actually buying from a Premier League club now. So it will be interesting. I think it probably helps United's case in getting rid of Weghorst now in terms of letting him go. I think it's more financially viable to sort of let him go back to Burnley rather than sort of, if you had to buy him now, he'd probably cost 15 million. If we were to buy him from Burnley, in the Championship, it would cost 5 million. So interesting one there. But one or two more comments before we sort of do move on to sort of around the grounds. But I need Villa to take points off Newcastle next game. There will be a good one. I think Arsenal also have Newcastle in a couple of weeks as well. So
they do. It's at St James's Park.
Yeah, so big points there. Well, we'll get into Arsenal and City. City plays Southampton.
Just quickly on that Newcastle comment. Like, honestly, I couldn't give a shit how Newcastle do. For me, it's just if we finish top four and Spurs will fall away.
Actually, Spurs and Brighton, we'll go there. And look, I agree, third and fourth, what's the difference? It's Champions League football. But Spurs and Brighton, the challenge for Brighton, VAR, have come out. There was a comment earlier, Mark saying, seems like the PGMOL are apologising to clubs every week for the VAR mistakes. Where do you think the VAR goes from here? That decision, which, they're coming out every week and apologising to clubs. Now, ultimately, you can say, that's good of them for apologising. What does the apology do? That almost rubs the salt sort of deeper into the wounds, in my opinion, if you get an apology saying, the decision was wrong. So I think you can make what you will of the apology, but that decision from VAR not to award that penalty to Brighton, not just the isolated thing there in regards to, okay, it was a penalty, they didn't give it, you can discuss that, but the ramifications in regards to the top four race, that's a big win for Spurs and a huge sort of defeat for Brighton. So I'm just thinking your thoughts around that whole situation. One, the tackle, two, the ramifications, and also the referees now coming out and apologising.
With regards to the let's call it the European race, because realistically, is Brighton going to make Champions League? No. But let's say Brighton get that win. Do they leapfrog Tottenham if that's the case? Would they have leapfrogged Tottenham?
I'll bring the ladder up here. Continue with your point. I'll bring the ladder up as we're speaking, but they're in and around it.
Whether they leapfrog Spurs or not, the point is they would have gotten a lot closer to them and potentially clinch that fifth or sixth spot and be in the Europa League or one step closer to it, more so than being in the Conference League, which for Brighton, I mean, De Zerbi, I think, is a very good manager and is very capable of managing Brighton through the Europa League.
Yeah, look, there if they were to get those 3 points there, they'd be on 49, Spurs would be on 50, and they'd still have 2 games on them. So that's a huge defeat for Brighton.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say Brighton eventually do get the better of Spurs. What does that do for Spurs' confidence? Do they fall out of the European spots altogether? For me, as soon as Conte got sacked, I had Spurs finishing in the Conference League spot, and ultimately that still might happen, but that is a big win for him. But on it, look, as much as I don't like the guy, congratulations to Son Heung-min on 100 Premier League goals.
Yeah, 100 Premier League goals. Yeah, fair play to him. Actually, a guy at the pub, the guy who I was having the discussion with, or the heated argument with McTominay, he was hell bent on bringing Son in at whatever the cost.
Please don't. Please don't.
He was saying Son's 10 times the player Harry Kane is, but
I overheard that actually. I overheard you in that discussion. Actually, yeah, that was very tempting to butt in.
Yeah, I think half the pub did. But Adam here saying VAR isn't the problem. It's the guys using
Yeah,
VAR, if that makes sense. It's 100% the issue. The technology is there, and the ability for a referee to go and view the footage again is 100%. We sitting on the couch on the other side of the ball can see, okay, that's offside. No, that's a foul. That's handball. We can see it straight away 2 seconds after it happens. It's the referee still seeing that footage and making the wrong decision. The technology is there. We can talk about the lines in offside or goal line technology. They're different things in regards to technology. But the decision making in regards to, is that a penalty or is that a handball? It's the referees making the decision, looking at the footage in slow motion and making the wrong decision. That is the issue. The issue is not the technology or the introduction or the use of VAR. And I'm just thinking, ultimately, Adam's on 100% right there. That there's no issue with VAR. It's the idiot referee in charge of it.
I agree 100%, and that is why I'll never be anti-VAR. And like Adam says perfectly, VAR's not the problem; it's the people using it. Football has always been a game that, rightly or wrongly, has been determined by human error. We were all crying out before, what if we had something where we could stop and have a look and eradicate the howlers? Whether we like to admit it or not, there are much less howlers being made now than there were before we had VAR. The only difference is we're able, the howlers that are made, we're able to see loud and clear because we've seen that many replays of it and they still make the same mistakes. But does it mean there's any more than what there were pre-VAR? No, it doesn't.
Yeah, no, definitely. And look, it is one of the things that we could, we always want, we crave that discussion where we crave the drama and controversy. It's all that discussion you want at the pub with your mates. But then ultimately, one of the sort of drawbacks from VAR when it was sort of being introduced, well, is that going to get rid of those? Ultimately, it sort of increased them. You got more discussions now with the introduction of VAR. So it is one of those things that's here to stay, and I think it should be here to stay. But just improve referees. Referees need to be better. Coaches need to be better. They're held accountable for results. Players are held accountable for their performances. Referees need to be held accountable far more, because it's not just little mistakes. Okay, Scott McTominay making a bad pass or David De Gea letting one through his legs. They're mistakes that happen. Like, these are just, they're getting a second chance to have a look at the screen and rectify their mistakes, and they're still choosing to make the wrong decision. And I'm just saying, ultimately, it's the referees at fault for this. But I'm sure we're having many discussions. Fingers crossed United aren't burnt by VAR anymore. But 2 more results to sort of go through in regards to the Premier League wrap-up. Before we get into the Liverpool-Arsenal match, which you could argue was one of the games of the season, especially in regards to the situation around the 2 clubs. But the one before that, I didn't stay up for the Liverpool match. I watched the Crystal Palace-Leeds match, and I was thinking, I'll watch it for what it is. I've got no work tomorrow, so I'll stay up. I'll have a beer and watch Leeds Crystal Palace. Leeds went 1-0 up, and I thought, oh, here we go. Okay, it's going to be a rough Sunday night watching this. I'll watch it for how long I can stay awake. Then Crystal Palace scored. They scored again. They scored again and kept scoring. And I'm just thinking it was a beautiful way to wrap up my weekend, watching Leeds get absolutely smashed, because there's drama around Javi Gracia. I don't know what the situation is with Leeds. Is he permanent? Is he interim? I'm not sure what's happening with Leeds. And long may that continue.
I think he's permanent. I think he's permanent, having us here, yeah.
So I'll bring up the ladder again in regards to that. Well, I'm not sure what their situation is there in regards to, if I can bring it up here, Leeds are in a little bit of trouble.
They're 16th,
if you look there,
as we speak. They are 16th.
But only 2 points off. So, yeah, Leicester get a win or Nottingham Forest get a win. I'm not sure who Leeds fixtures in them, but they've sort of flirted with, since they came up to the Premier League, they've always flirted with relegation, and they've sort of had enough to stay in there, maybe just through, I don't know whether it be Patrick Bamford or the 1 or 2 goals that they sort of outscore opponents at times. But ultimately, you flirt with it for long enough, you're going to get burnt. And I'd love to see them go down. A percentage of your opinion of the likelihood of them getting relegated?
Leeds?
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
There's just worse teams there?
Yeah. And I hate to say one of them because, like, as much as we love having Leicester in the league, I think their time's up, unfortunately. And but
yeah,
if I had to put a number on Leeds, I'll say 40%.
Yeah, they are struggling.
I don't think they do, though.
I look at that, and I would have to say the bottom 3. It's just a hunch with 8 games left. The bottom 3, I think, stays the same there. I think Forest, Leicester, and Southampton. Look, and one result will change that. Look, if West Ham lose 2 on the bounce and Nottingham Forest win 2, it changes everything, of course. But as things stand, I think in regards to the teams have probably been least impressed with this season.
I still get the hunch that Everton could drop back in, though.
That'd be brilliant. It'd be brilliant viewing.
I would love it.
Maybe with Sean Dyche, maybe they have a little bit too much, but it will be interesting to see what does happen with Everton. But look, the top of the table, we'll keep the draw up, or the ladder up. Arsenal against Liverpool. talking pivotal, this is a big one. This will be one Arsenal fans look back at the end of the season. If they win the league, they'll win it by one game very likely, and they'll look back at a fantastic point away at Anfield. If they lose the league, they'll be looking back at they let a 2-goal lead slip at Anfield, and that's what cost them the title. So I'm just thinking, as some of you watch the match, I watched the extended highlights. Premier League football at its finest had everything. Arsenal sort of hit the ground running, 2 goals, and sort of playing Liverpool off the park. Then ultimately the game does change, and Liverpool probably should have won the match in the end quite comfortably. The chances after chance, a missed penalty by Mohamed Salah as well. So just your thoughts on the Arsenal-Liverpool match, because we don't like to admit it, but as a Man United fan, we were invested in it for whatever reason. I think some of us maybe sort of potentially secretly wanted Liverpool to win the match, and others sort of wanted Arsenal to win in regards to the Manchester City debate. But just your thoughts on the match.
I thought too it was a very fair result. Arsenal were completely dominant the first half hour. Trent was being Trent. Virgil was acting like the fraud that he is. And Alisson was very much the sole figure keeping them in it. Arguably, Arsenal could have been 4-0 up after half an hour. But in my opinion, the game turned is when Xhaka squared up to Alexander-Arnold.
A lot of people are saying that, yeah.
The degenerate Anfield crowd got riled up. And then when you get an Anfield crowd riled up, it's only going to work to Liverpool's favour. And from that moment onwards, Arsenal very rarely struggled to. They had a couple of good chances on the counter in the second half. Either Saka or Martinelli couldn't get the final ball across, but really from then on, it was just like the game was on a slope like that from Liverpool running down.
You're looking at the ladder there in regards to City obviously have the game in hand. So let's put Manchester City up to 70 points, 3 points behind, and then obviously City, they do have a better goal difference slightly. City obviously do host Arsenal at the end of the month. So just your hunch with sort of 8 games to go, 9 in City's case, where you feel and the Premier League title ends up?
I think it's all dependent on what happens at the Etihad between Arsenal and City. I think if City win, unfortunately, it's in their hands from there. It's in their hands now, but it's even more so in their hands if they were to win that match. And knowing how relentless they are and have been, they'll probably go on with it. However, if Arsenal avoid defeat, and more importantly, if they can win that game, then they go 6 points clear with 5 games to go. You don't see them losing from there, do you?
Who's City? Do you, off the top of your head, or anyone in the live chat, know who City's game in hand?
It is against West Ham.
Okay.
And they don't play that game until the last week of April, I think.
Okay, it might be maybe a similar round to when we played Chelsea. I don't think put back in the fixture calendar. So look, you do think City probably win that match quite comfortably. Erling Haaland probably scores 4 goals.
It's at home as well. Yeah, it's at home. Haaland will score 4. Boys will get sacked.
Well, we'll be interested in regards to, we've had many discussions in regards to what, as a Manchester United fan, or what's more painful, dealing with Arsenal fans or City winning 3 in a row. My opinion changes every single day. At the moment, I'm starting to lean back towards I'd prefer Arsenal to win it in regards to not dealing with City having 3 in a row. My one caveat in regards to City winning 3 in a row, though, is I'm not sure if this is so much hope and a little bit of fantasy. I do truly think in 3 or 4 years' time, they will be stripped of titles. I do think there is something.
They won't. I don't think they will.
I think there is something in what broke a couple of months ago, and that'll take years. I understand that'll take years, but I do see a situation in regards to the way football's going, the way they're sort of trying to sort of clamp down on, let's say, called state ownership and clubs like that. There's no doubt City have broken the rules, and I'm just thinking if they are going to stand by their rules and be firm, the protocol will be to strip the titles. Now, I just think, am I going to run that risk of City winning 3 or 4 titles in a row just to get them stripped in 5 years' time? I'm not sure I'm sort of happy to sort of take that risk. But I also don't want to deal with Arsenal fans.
I want to bring up Adam's comment. They could still win the treble.
That is a fear. That is a fear which leads me more towards Arsenal winning the Premier League. But that is a big fear, which we have sort of forgotten about. There's always that one club. It was actually us, to be fair, 2 months ago. People were talking about the quadruple, and obviously no one's ever going to win the quadruple. But that was a discussion that whoever makes the League Cup final, I think, is always that first club to have the quadruple discussion. If you're in the League Cup final, you're usually going to be in the other competitions as well. So that was us. Then our title sort of slipped away. But City's treble talk is quiet now. I don't know if that's because it's very unlikely that they're going to do it, or no one cares about it. I'm not sure. Maybe Manchester City just don't sort of dominate the headlines. That's why it's not really a discussion. But if you do look at the facts, very likely. And not likely, but they've got a strong possibility.
Yeah, they've got Sheffield United in the FA Cup semi, potentially crash course with us in the final. Manchester Derby final, anything can happen. They've got Bayern Munich in the Champions League on Wednesday morning, our time here.
That's
Thomas
big.
Tuchel's first Champions League tie with Bayern
Who do you
Munich.
back there? Not back. A betting man, but Bayern or City to go through over the two legs?
Over two legs, I'm going City, but I just hope Real Madrid knock them out the next leg.
Well, yeah, you got. I'm petrified of Chelsea in the Champions League. I don't know why. I know Real Madrid should go.
Not under Lampard.
Yeah,
if it was any other manager, they would have got through. Even Potter, they would have got through any other manager.
Yeah, no, probably. And look, Real Madrid, God, we talk about us as Manchester United fans being proud of sort of our 3 European Cups and so a little bit sort of bitter towards how many Liverpool have. You look at how many Champions League European Cups Real Madrid have. They just sort of win it every...
all 14 of them.
Every year they seem to sort of win it. Shane here saying bookies have Manchester City as favourites. I would... My gut says Arsenal have won the title. I just think they've been the best team this season. They've had the biggest moments, and I always fall back on the team who has those moments wins the Premier League. And I think they have been better than Manchester City this year. So I think ultimately you do get what you deserve. Now, if Arsenal sort of crumble in this last 10 games, well, they'll deserve not to win the title. But my hunch at the moment says Arsenal will win it. But in regards to, if I had no information in regards to sort of my gut around Arsenal and just looking at Manchester City and what they've done in previous seasons, you do have to say they are favourites just in regards to the makeup of their squad and manager compared to the team in North London.
And I agree with that because let me bring it back to you and ask you a question. In the league, when City have had things in their own hands, when was the last time they lost?
Yeah.
When they had things in their own hands.
I wouldn't know. Was it us? Liverpool?
Oh, us back in 2011. That's the
that's what I mean. I've tried to forget the season when Liverpool won the league, like, in terms of how that sort of situation.
But they didn't even have that in their hands. Liverpool were 25 points ahead before.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I'm not sure in terms of with Leicester, but yeah, it could have been us.
City in 2011 had the league in their.
Is that the Rooney bicycle?
Yeah, they had the league in their hands that year, and then slipped up. That is the last time that they've had a league in their hands and slipped up.
Yeah. Well, very different Manchester City team now, but you do look at what Pep Guardiola has done, and we don't like to admit it, but they are sort of, I wouldn't say building a dynasty because no one really cares what happens at Manchester City. As I said, if they do win the league, Manchester United will put out a Palestri contract extension, and that'll be on the back page of the news. So we won't see the photos of Manchester City lifting the trophy, so we can escape any City success quite easily as Man United fans, but deep down it will hurt a lot more than Arsenal. Arsenal will sort of hurt on the surface in regards to the way we consume football on Twitter and YouTube, etc. But City we can move on quite quick, but will be painful. I'm a little bit under the skin. But anything else in and around the Premier League this weekend? Anything else in the live chat regarding Premier League or Man United? Do put it in the comments before we do wrap up. But George, I'll throw the floor to you. Any other talking points? Well, there was the one, obviously, the Liverpool match. Andy Robertson. Weird one. Half-time, he goes to, I think, confront this is my understanding of what I saw. He goes to sort of go up to the referee and just like a Bruno Fernandes sort of puts his hand on the referee to just sort of just have a word with him. And nothing incident. Technically, okay, shouldn't put his hands on the referee. I fully understand that, which we've debated many a time in the last couple of weeks. So Andy Robertson touches the referee, and the referee, I don't want to say throws an elbow at him, but pretty much get off me and sort of raise his elbow at him, and could have hit him. And just your thoughts. If there's anyone I think deserves to be elbowed, I'm all for elbowing Andy Robertson. He's in Jordan Pickford's category for me. Yep. However, not the referee. I don't think the referee should be doing it.
To be fair, I wouldn't complain if he did, though. Okay, is Andy Robertson in the Jordan Pickford category for me? He's slightly above Jordan Pickford, just because he has some sort of footballing ability and talent. That's why he's not as bad as Pickford for me, but I'd love to elbow him as well.
What do you think will come of it? Do you think there is something in what the referee did in regards to...
Nothing incident.
Do you think? Off the back of what happened with Mitrovic? No, I know the roles are reversed, but Mitrovic just getting 8 games for an elbow. I'm just thinking whether the elbow connects or not. An elbow is an elbow.
But the referees association
will
argue.
That'll be interesting.
They'll argue on self-defense.
Yeah. It is interesting in regards to the way Liverpool fans are dealing with, in terms of the way they dealt or sort of reacted to Bruno Fernandes touching the referee, saying that's a disgrace, banning. Andy Robertson has touched the referee, and he's full within his right. The referee should be banned. So football is a funny game in terms of the way we react to different teams in our own teams.
They're a fan base that got behind Suarez when he was doing what he did with Evra. So you tell that to me.
I saw a good meme the other day. It was a card, collectors trading football
Yeah,
cards.
yeah.
And I had one at Kalini, but it was like teeth mark missing out of the side of the photo. It was a great photo. It was a good one. It took me what's happened here, but then I realised what it was. But then, that was a good one. But Luis Suarez at Liverpool, didn't he? It's always full of drama, whether it was racism, Biden, anything. But thank God he's not in the Premier League anymore. SJ here. The ref stuffed up, but I think he barely grazed. Yeah, I don't think there was any real sort of contact. But even after that, when the referee was walking off, he was one of those ones. Really had his chest puffed out, walking off like Conor McGregor. He's a little bit arrogant there. And look, I like anyone who sort of steps up and puts it on Andy Robertson, of course. But I don't think the referee did himself any favours. I think in terms of, again, the perception around referees and their performances in recent weeks or this weekend alone, the last thing in terms of the referees coming out and apologising every second game, this is the last thing they need put on their table Monday morning.
Yeah, it's one of those things that ideally you don't want to deal with these scenarios, and how do you actually deal with that scenario? I can't think of too many occasions this season or in general over the last 5 years where that's happened.
I don't know. I think, to be honest, just the cynic in me, what they'll do, I think what they'll try and do is put a lot of information through Dermot Gallagher or whoever they have on Sky Sports or throughout their channels in terms of talking about bad decisions. I think they'll talk about the Brighton decision. I think they'll find a handball and that they'll sort of discuss decisions like that. In terms of VAR, they'll talk about introducing this type of technology next season. I think they will try and deflect it. Like when a manager sort of loses a game, they'll blame a referee or they'll blame the weather conditions. It'll all be to deflect something. I think the referee will sort of throw stuff out there to disguise it a little bit. And I think, is that the right thing, the wrong thing to do? I think if I was in charge of the referee and I didn't want to have to deal with it, that'd probably be the right thing to do in regards to, because it does open up a huge can of worms for the officials.
Yeah, shift the blame elsewhere, deflect the problem for what it actually is, or what
I think this is what Shane says here, shouldn't have gotten the official's face, which is ultimately, I think, why the rule is in place in regards to don't put your hands on the referee, so nothing ever eventuates. And so put it in the player's hands. If you don't touch the referee's not going to touch you. I think that is why sort of these sort of rules are in play. And you can say rightly so in regards to make sure you don't put yourself in a position where anything can escalate. And ultimately that is why players, if you do touch the referee in any type of aggressive manner, that is why. Like Mitrovic should get 8 games. So we do remember to never do this. But I'd love to see Andy Robertson get banned, because if it was a United player, probably would get banned. But I'd love to see Robertson get banned and the referee may be given the next game in the middle of Anfield.
Everyone forgets when Aguero put his arm around the female linesman when he was complaining about.
I still remember that. The worst one I ever see. If anyone remembers in the live chat, please leave a like for my memory, but also get your thoughts in. Joe Hart ran the length of the field and headbutted Michael Oliver.
Oh yeah, he did too. Oh, Danny Vukovic.
Head to head with him.
Danny Vukovic.
The Danny Vukovic for any Australian fans.
For all international, sorry for our international viewers.
That was a good one. But it was in the Manchester derby from memory.
Was it the 12-13 derby when Van Persie?
No, I think it was Van Hal. I think they smashed us. I think it was one of those ones under Van Hal they smashed it, the Etihad. I have a feeling, maybe I'm wrong. But Joe Hart ran the length of the field and went face-to-face, head-to-head with Michael Oliver and didn't headbutt him, but put his forehead on him. And just thinking, ultimately, you could make a case. If that was a player against another player, that's an automatic red card. And I'm just thinking this was the goalkeeper who ran the length of the field to do it against a referee. And it was sort of celebrated amongst the media. Oh, here's Joe Hart. This is funny. This is how much he cares. I'm saying, my God, that's a red card. And now, if that happened this week, you'd get a 12-game ban.
Yeah,
and
one of not many players,
rightly so.
One of not many players who's glorified for abusing a ball boy in a World Cup and headbutting a referee.
Who was that again? That was Italy, wasn't it? The World Cup.
Italy, yeah.
If anyone hasn't watched that, go type in Joe Hart ball boy. It was great footage. It's only a 10-second clip. But I think we've all been in that position. George, you've been as goalkeepers. Yeah. You're getting a ball, you need to launch at 60 metres and the ball boy won't give it to you. So you definitely understand Joe Hart's frustration. But it's always funny when someone else is frustrated and not you. But anything else to discuss? United discussed around the grounds. Rashford potentially injured. Who knows? Maybe one or two more sort of bits.
I don't think he starts against Sevilla. I don't think he starts against Sevilla.
My hunch says he's actually injured, like properly injured. Yeah. I have a feeling he could be a couple of weeks.
I think he is, yeah. I definitely don't see him in the squad at all against Sevilla, actually.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm talking 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's a proper injury. With no information, who knows? It's just my hunch.
I think the fact that he went straight down the tunnel, unfortunately, tells us what we need to know.
Yeah.
With that regard.
good moment for him, though, or giving his shirt to a little kid in the crowd. Also saw a great thing, if anyone hadn't seen it on Twitter, it was Wolves and Chelsea at the Molineux. I think it might have been half-time or pre-game, and I'm not sure when. It must have been half-time. They, the Wolves Foundation, or like the Manchester United Foundation, they let Wolves, some disabled children from Wolves and Chelsea come out on the pitch and play a game, just a small-sided game. Like one or two kids are on crutches, one or two kids sort of, but both physical or mental disabilities, playing out there. And it brought a tear to your eye watching these kids run around and score a couple of goals and celebrate in front of the fans, like fans cheering the goals on. If anyone hasn't watched it, just go onto YouTube or Twitter and type in the Wolves Foundation. A bit of great footage, a bit of a feel-good factor to wrap up the weekend. But George, been an absolute pleasure discussing all things Premier League. Something a little bit different. Obviously, it's a little bit quiet, weirdly, around Manchester United in regards to have discussed the game. It's a little bit too far out to discuss the Sevilla game, which we'll preview later in the week. And a bit bored of transfer discussion, to be honest. And there's nothing around Sir Jim, Qatar, or the Glazers. So hope everyone who did tune in enjoyed the Premier League chat. Any parting words, George?
No, thankfully we've had to go, or we've gone another week without having to mention our number 11. So you and Larry have covered that really well, or the pub that came up quite a lot. But yeah, I think that rightly or wrongly, that's going to be a story in a couple of weeks. What happens with him?
It's going to have to be, because if they don't, it's just going to drag out even longer. So that is definitely going to have to be a story. And look, we will address it. Obviously, it is the elephant in the room, and it's open to the court of public opinion now. So we will discuss it. But it's one of those things we still need as much information as possible, because what we do have is out there, and everyone sort of is out there to dissect that information. But you still do need to be careful, and there still is a victim involved in the case, or the so-called case. There still is someone who has had that act potentially committed against them. So we still need to tread carefully, but it is a discussion to be had. So hopefully everyone did enjoy that. Please do leave a like on the video if you are new. If you could hit that subscribe button and notification bell to join us next time we go live, we very much appreciate it. And George, pleasure. Chat to you in a bit, and everyone in the live chat, have a good rest of your Monday, and we'll chat to you soon. Cheers.